Hello, Collabers. This is week 13, week 12, and this is your briefing for our next stage in our project. I want to kind of go through what we're working on and be able to give you the details on how to get ready for finalizing this class as we quickly approach the end here. Now, last week I showed this and I had actually 16 weeks on here thinking we had 4 weeks for this project, and looking at my calendar, something went haywire and we actually have, not counting this week, 3 more weeks. So I've adjusted it here. This is week 12, we're going into week 13. And for this week, we had kind of a 2-part transitional week. And many of you, maybe most, maybe somewhere in between, have submitted your final files for your storybook. And I'll be working on that here with my team to send them off to the printers, and with the hopes that maybe we can get these back in your hands before the final reviews. No promises, but that's my hope. And some of you are still finalizing. Get those completed as soon as possible. I know a few people have a little bit of an extension because of just the depth of their illustrations and the need to have more time and working that out. Some of you are just behind because of circumstances. Please keep working with me to ensure that you keep up. And most importantly, please be sure you follow the process that's on the assignments, so that each of the Google Drive folders has a submission. You put in your progress for each submission so that I'm able to grade you with as much points as I can do. Of course, being late will discount points, but I want to give you as much as I can. So finalize your storybook, finalize the final files, make that transition, and then we're on to the visuals, audio-visual storybook. We had great one-on-one sessions last night. Many of you are opting to go with extending your storybook, which is great. There's a lot of good assets there, and many of you have amazing stories. And the point now that we're at is in having that plan. A few of you are making new stories or doing a whole new thing. That's good too. But basically, that as of this week, you should have that plan set. You should begin to go into more specifics about how your story text will be broken up to pair up with illustrations. How many illustrations do you think you'll need? The key is going to be that your story is long enough that this is going to work. If it's a very short story, you may have some challenges. Some of you are going to extend your story. Some of you may need to read slower. But the key to this is going to be a good length. 5-minute to 10-minute story is ideal. And within every image you do, I haven't timed it, but maybe like 30, 20 seconds. Because what you want is enough time for your image to be on the screen, for it to do a little bit of panning or zooming in a very slow, elegant way, and then for it to transition. I'm going to show you an example of that coming up here in a bit. And I'll also post that example for you to look at independently outside of this video. It's in the assignment link already. So next week, is going to be about the work you're doing for next week will be about creating that full plan, adjusting or creating your illustrations to the vertical format, and to using the 1080 by 1920 dimension in order to crop your images to that size, 1080 pixels by 1920 pixels, and then to have the plan ready so that for next week, we can go into week 14 week after next, and do the production, begin the process of recording and preparing the mock-up of your audio-visual book. After that, it will be the final week, week 15, and we're going to have final reviews, which is going to mean that you're going to need to have a deck ready that allows you to present all 3 of your projects. And of course, you're going to have to create a more condensed version of your presentation. You still may have the same amount of pages as you had in the past, but taking out a lot of the process and just speaking more quickly within every project, and be able to kind of talk about your concept, talk about your research, but in a quick way, and then get to your actual design. We'll talk more about the final in the coming weeks. And then next, I want to share with you just the preliminary and give you the context of this. And this is a work in progress, obviously, but here you kind of see a preliminary set of mock-ups that signify or that show kind of what this vision of DERT Reads is, and give you this basic idea that this is going to be an app that works on a smartphone. And as the top banner here explains, it's kind of really about this idea of digitally having a companion that can read to you, or a voice that speaks to you, giving you stories that don't require you having to read, but require you being the participant in an audible way. And that our app is going to be an enhanced audible experience where visuals will be provided kind of based on the work that DERT designers and illustrators have been doing in the past. And here we've just put in a few images from past short story books. And the idea will be that a young person could have this app. They could click on a story based on available stories, and be able to listen to a story read by somebody who sounds real, who's not some weird robot voice, but sounds like an authentic person, and also get a little bit of visual support. So the big thing with this project, there are a lot of promises and a lot of exciting things you can do, particularly for young people, for kids, that are engaging, interactive, exciting, dynamic. And we're not trying to do that with this. This specific project is really about being in the back seat, being a support, being a visual that helps keep the reader participant or the listener participant engaged, helps give some visual cues and support, but really takes a back seat to the words that are being expressed through listening. And we talked about that with everybody, so I think everyone has a good idea about that. So let me switch here to PowerPoint real quick and give you our little mock-up, which we had to make in PowerPoint. So what I'm going to share is going to be just a few. I'm going to skip through it because it's like 8 minutes long, but you're welcome to watch the full thing on the other link that I've made. That will be on the Canvas assignment sheet, and also on the YouTube page, on the same one you got this link from. But you're going to see how how it's supposed to work. So let me go to that.
DERT Reads presents The Great Flood, illustrated by Cheryl Zhang, narrated by JC Chen.
Okay, so this is the first slide, and what should happen next is that it automatically turns the page, which I'm going to do in a second here. But what you saw there was an interface came up that took about halfway. It had the title, had a credits and a description, and had the dashboard for pausing and starting and going back and forth. And that's going to be part of everyone's. It's going to be within the design system, the user experience system. So when you create your story, your title page, which is what we're looking at here, which is still moving, which shouldn't be doing, but the idea will be that your title page is going to be designed in a way where that it can be interrupted halfway by an interface. So let's go on. So if that last bit just happened, and then what would happen next is it would automatically turn to the next page.
Once upon a time, there was a widow who had a child, and the child was a kind-hearted boy of whom everyone was fond. One day, he said to his grandmother, "All the other children have a grandmother, but I have none, and that makes me feel very sad." "We will hunt up a grandmother for you," said his mother.
All right, so just to pause it there. So as you can see, and like I have no control here. Let me see if I can. I'm going to keep paging through, then I'll talk. So these are all sections, and they're all a couple of minutes each. As you can see, the images are panning or they're zooming. The interface comes back up. This would happen if you put your finger on the screen, so it's just showing how that would work. But basically, it's a full visual experience. It's not about typography, but it's about listening and watching. I'm going to skip ahead.
Then a dog came drifting along. and they saved him in their ship. Soon after came a pair of mice with their little ones.
There it is again. So I'm going to skip again ahead.
But the man was filled with a desire for the pearls. He went to the judge and entered a complaint against the boy and his mother, and they were both thrown into the jail.
I'm going to skip ahead again. And this
So
is the last
judge
page.
had them brought before him and asked what they had done and how they had made their way through the flood. Then they told them everything. And
Okay, so sorry I couldn't talk and play that at the same time. So basically I skipped through this thing, but if you played it through, it wouldn't be about clicking. I'm only clicking because that's how we have it set up in this PowerPoint demo, but it would run automatically. I mean, you can stop it by pausing it, but the idea would be that it's an experience that just happens on its own. And your images are more like background automated, almost wallpaper. So in your planning, it'll be about creating that vertical experience. And as you saw, there were images that were panning, or they were zooming, or they were zooming in or out, or panning left or right. And those are the limited amounts of effect that I kind of want to have. I don't want it to be distracting. I also don't want to be too static. And because you do you could go left or right, that means you could make a more horizontal drawing that can move and you can show more in the frame. But the key will be the amount of text. If you have a short amount of text, you'll only have so much that you can move. If you have a long amount of text, then you will have more time to go across. The key is I don't want you to rush things to go too fast, because then it'll become distracting if it's moving too fast. So it should be like a nice, slow kind of pace that doesn't distract, but just keeps it looking alive. You noticed at the beginning it said the name of the title of the book, the type of book, The Great Flood, a Chinese folk tale. And then it said illustrated by Cheryl Zhang, narrated by JC Chang. You'll be saying that too. You'll be putting your credit in there as illustrator and narrator, or if you have someone that you decide to work with that you commission to be your narrator, then you give that person the credit. And then you repeat the same thing at the end. After your book is over, you'll be repeating the name of the book, the kind of book it was, or the kind of story it was, and then repeating the credits to end it. More on the details of how to record it next week, but for now, you need to be working towards that idea. Okay, so on the why is it so big? Whoops, on the Zoom page, on the Canvas document, we I'm losing my mind here. On the Canvas site, we have the assignment sheet that gives a little more details and provides you a link to the sample so you can watch it in full without me talking over it, and gives you a little more details. The 1080 by 1920 dimension is there. And basically, you're going to add to your presentation. Your goal is to try to have, well, your goal is for sure to have all your illustrations planned out and your text and how it correlates, and then to make those adjustments. Some of you may not have to do a lot of work. If it's a simple thing to make your adjustments, that's okay. Some of you may have to do extra things to make your illustrations work within this radically different up and down vertical format. So ideally, you get all that done this week, or less ideally, you get most of it done so that the week after next, you can finish it and record it. But week after next is when we're recording and finishing it. So this week is about getting the illustrations all tied together and done and adjusted or created if you're starting from scratch. Place your work in the Part 2 Audiovisual Storybook Design Development Google Drive folder and keep doing this, and make sure you've been doing it in the past for your past assignments. And that's basically it. Again, there's a link on the same YouTube page for the demo. It's called DERT Audiovisual Book Demo for the Great Flood, something like that. So make sure you watch that. And again, it's not that you need to make it just like that. It's a demo. Yours should be way better. We just adjusted some illustrations from a past book, but it's meant to show you somebody's first try at what this could look like. So Good luck with everything. Reach out if you need anything. And again, if you're not done with your storybooks, that's your first priority, to get your storybooks done and posted so that I can get them processed and sent to the printer. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.